One of our favorites back here on the Rich Eisen Show, the proprietor and creator of Pro Football Talk, our friend Mike Florio is back here on the program. Good to see you, Mike.
Been a while. I thought you put me on the pay no mind list. I do something?
Never.
If
No.
I did, I just want to know.
No.
I enjoy it a lot more if I know. I don't care if I did something.
Dude, what are you
but I
talking
always
about?
like to know what it is.
0.0. You did nothing other than just, nothing. I appreciate you being on here. How are you, sir? How have you been?
Good. Are you terrestrial still? Can you get fined if I would start dropping F-bombs, S-bombs, and any other bombs?
I am still terrestrial. Yes. We have installed a dump button. Meet Jason Feller. He's in charge of it. So you can go ahead and do that sort of thing if you so choose. But
please don't.
I wouldn't do that to Jason, even though I don't know Jason. I wouldn't do it to Jason.
It's okay.
I'm ready.
It's all good. No, he's got a quick trigger finger. We don't start our show every hour with a disclaimer. So but you can still do it, Mike.
Please don't sue us.
Good to see you. What is the story of the last month and a half, post draft story in your estimation, Mike?
Well, it's funny. I thought things were supposed to slow down after the draft, and they really haven't.
Nope.
There's something every day. And, Rich, we could talk about contracts. Contracts get worked out, or they don't. Usually they do. If the team wants the player and the player wants to be there, they eventually get it worked out. The one thing that I think we aren't paying nearly enough attention to collectively, because we can't envision what it's going to be.
Oh, I know where you're going. Is it the kickoff? You going kickoff?
The kickoff rule change is the most dramatic and significant single rule change in at least 30 years.
Wow.
2-point conversion. At least 30. Maybe 50. 50 years ago is when they decided it wasn't a good idea to have the goalpost up at the goal line because who would guess that somebody might run into a metal pole after they score a touchdown? So they moved it back. And then they added overtime for the regular season that same year. That was 50 years ago. That was pretty significant. With replay, it's been an evolution.
Sure.
With the passing game, it's been an evolution. To take a play that was dead, gone, nobody kicked off, minuscule returns. And now they're saying 1,600 plays. And there's all these different strategic angles, and nobody has any reliable analytics because there's no base of experience for anyone to come up with the formula other than what the XFL did. So I think that we have absolutely no idea what's going to happen, and the teams have no idea what's going to happen. And my prediction is this, Rich.
Yes, sir.
By the trade deadline, by the Tuesday after week 9, because they moved it back a week this year, by then, half the league will have said, screw this. We're just kicking the ball out of the back of the end zone. You can start on the 30. I'm not pinning my job on essentially Russian roulette with this kickoff. I'll trust my defense with the drive starting at the 30.
No kidding.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I thought you're going the other way, that at the trade deadline, somebody's going to make an acquisition from somebody else's team to get a specialist that will either like Justin Reed, like the Chiefs are considering doing, is having somebody who can actually tackle, who's a professional tackler, kick the ball off and have that person be the sort of last safety net in case anybody gets through the initial line, or a skilled position player could be more valuable because of the kickoff. You're going the other way around, saying, screw it. We're just going to start kicking the ball and make sure our defense can handle a 70-yard field behind it.
Not everyone.
Okay.
Not everyone. And I think defensive head coaches are going to be more likely to do this because they're going to trust their defense. And they're more conservative by nature, as it relates to the risks they're willing to take and how freewheeling they want it to be. Once one guy loses a game because of, the kickoff specialist slips a tackle and hits the hole on the 10-man wall and the kicker can't get him and he's loose, as Paul Allen would say, you're not going to pin your job. What was the line from A Few Good Men? You're pinning these soldiers' hopes to a footlocker and a phone bill. You're not going to pin your hopes to this roll of the dice. Who knows what's going on here? My job may depend on this. No, I think not everyone, because some teams are going to figure it out. And that's all the more reason for the other teams to say, screw this, we're just kicking it out of the end zone.
I love it. You're right. We haven't talked about it enough here. I'm already making a mental note that next week's show we should start getting people in here to start figuring this stuff out, because there are a lot of, smart guys and a lot of creative folks in the coaching halls of this league that are going to try and crack the code, and whoever does first might have a significant advantage in the 2024 playing season for sure.
One game can make a difference. We get down to week 18
right,
and we're sifting out tiebreakers and all that. One game that goes your way and not the other team's way could be the thing that gets you into the postseason. And if you've got a great return specialist and you're okay, let's say I got a great return specialist and my opponent's in the postseason, just going to kick it out of the end zone. Fine. I start every drive at the 30. And remember this, they initially conceived that rule. If you kick it out of the end zone, it's the 35. At the league meetings, they moved it from the 35 to the 30. If they had just left it at the 35, I don't think that this would be the possibility. But the 30, it's really not that much different than the 25. If you like your defense, you're fine. So that 35 versus 30 could be the thing that gets some of these teams to say, we're out. We're not taking the chance, kicking off the Tyreek Hill or whoever. We're just not going to do it.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. You mentioned contracts. You can talk about them because some will get done, some won't. Most of them will. The contracts in Dallas, which ones don't get done, do you think, Mike? It could be zero.
I don't get the Cowboys know how to draft and develop. They constantly get it wrong when they decide who to pay and who not to pay. They gave a big contract a few years ago to Michael Gallup coming off of an ACL tear, and that was a mistake. They used the franchise tag on Tony Pollard coming off of a broken ankle, and that was a mistake. But with Dak Prescott, they didn't pay him once he was 3 years in and eligible for a new deal. They dragged their feet for multiple years, put themselves in a bad spot, did a contract that really needed a restructuring and an extension by now because he's got a $55 million cap charge. They blew that. They're blowing it with CeeDee Lamb, who's between 17 and 18 million. And hey, the longer you wait, and this applies to all teams. Once you have a guy that you know you want to keep and he's under his rookie contract still, the longer you wait, it's only going to go up. It's never going to go down. And deal after deal, month after month, the CeeDee Lamb expectations will go up. And now with Micah Parsons, whose window is open on a second contract, and he said he's willing to be patient. Look, if he's willing to carry that injury risk, he'll get more later. Because right now, the top non-quarterback new money average is $35 million with Justin Jefferson. By next year, it's going to be what, 38, 39? Mm-hmm. It always keeps going up. It always goes up. So if they wait a year, Parsons is going to get even more. They screwed this up initially after the 2018 season when they didn't sign Dak. And all of this is a product of that. And look, Parsons showed up for mandatory minicamp, but you know who else did 5 years ago? Ezekiel Elliott showed up. And then when it was time for the training camp, he didn't show up. It'll be interesting to see what Michael Parsons does when it's time to report to Oxnard or wherever they get things started.
And you're absolutely right. It always does go up, and Parsons can afford to wait because one of the guys who's going to help that non-quarterback annual value go up in terms of being a new threshold could be CeeDee Lamb, so that's one of the conversations to have there. Another one is, my guy Brockman here is always wondering, when's it going to go down? When is a team basically going to say to a quarterback, especially, you have not won enough yet, and it does appear to be Jerry might be doing that with Dak, although I think that's the wrong fight to pick on that front. And I don't know if he's trying to pick it, but somebody's going to go and say, I am not going to create a $50 million a year value for this quarterback, and I'll just let him walk. I'll let him walk, and we'll go back to something else here, or I'm going to insist on a $40 million thing, and it'll be a stink, and we'll have to deal with it during the season. My coach will have to deal with it. Are we going to see that, or that'll never happen, Mike?
I remember arguing 5 years ago this month that the Rams should do that with Jared Goff, but they were determined to sign him to a new contract. They paid him market value, and 2 seasons later, they had to tuck an extra first-round pick into the Matthew Stafford trade package to get Goff's contract off the books. And then this year, I thought maybe the Lions would do it with Goff. And here he is with $53 million per year in new money. I think the Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa might be considering something along those lines. And it's not necessarily we're going to let you walk. It's we're going to let you become a free agent. We're going to let you see what else is out there. Because at the end of the day, what's out there might not be as good as what the current team is willing to pay. And I think before the season starts, the Dolphins will make their last best multi-year offer to Tua, and he's going to have to decide, do I take it or do I play under my fifth-year option at $23.1 million and kick the can for a year and assume the injury risk, assume that I play well enough, and hope that I can cash in either franchise tag, long-term deal, or they let me go to the market? That's the question I asked with Goff. In all due respect, look, Goff has been far better with the Lions than we thought he was going to be.
Yes.
Who are the Lions competing with when they give him $53 million a year? Who are the Cowboys competing with if they give Dak 60? Who are the Dolphins competing with if they give Tua 50? Who's the or else? And there's a point where I think one of these teams is going to say, we're just not going to compete with ourselves. We're not going to bid against ourselves. We want to see what else is out there because we get a better deal that way.
He's talking your language, Chris.
Thank you, Mike, for being a voice of reason. Like, why is Jacksonville going to give Trevor Lawrence $50 million? What has he done to deserve that?
Yeah, you're right. And they've got him under contract for 2 more years. Now, on one hand, you want to treat your franchise quarterback a certain way and it sends the right message, et cetera, et cetera. You justify the investment you made. But yeah, is it good business sense? Now, Lawrence, after his second year, looked like he was on the verge of being a top 5 quarterback. Last year, things went haywire. The blocking wasn't very good. He's made it clear, ideally, he'll get a contract before training camp starts. But not every team is going to break the bank for every first-round pick that's 3 years in to a rookie deal and has year 4 and 5th year option left. The Vikings didn't do it with Justin Jefferson last year. They almost did. There's no guarantee. There's no requirement that a team does it. I'd like to think that teams are going to be inclined to try, but it's one thing to say, we'd like to give you a new contract. It's another thing to come up with a number that both sides can agree on. And I think that's been the issue with Dak, because his leverage in part comes from the necessity to get that cap number down. That gives him even more basis to say, I want 60 or more. But you've got to find an agreement. You got to get a middle ground. And the Jaguars are going to try to do it with Lawrence. The Dolphins have been trying to do it with Tua. And the Lions surprisingly did it a few weeks back with Jared Goff.
So you think the Dolphins might stick to it's got to start with a 4 for Tua, and that might grind a gear or something like that? I mean, is that what you're saying? Like that's what's going on?
I think that whatever their last best offer is, it's going to be short of what he wants. He said this week, the market is the market.
Yes, he did.
But why? And this is something Chris Sims rails about from time to time on PFT Live, and I agree with him completely. We've gone through phases where next young quarterback who is due to get a second contract instantly becomes the highest paid player in the history of the sport. And it's a little bit more here, a little bit more there, a little bit more there. Why? Why is that? Why should Tua get 55 just because he's eligible for a new contract? Why? Like, there needs to be tiers. And that's the problem. The teams, as evidenced by what we saw with the Lions and Jared Goff, they're not willing to draw that line. They're not willing to say, we'll play this out and we'll run the risk of you possibly leaving. Like Kirk Cousins left the Vikings. The Vikings did exactly what you're saying, and I have to remind myself of that. We ask, when is a team finally going to do it? And specifically with a young quarterback, but the Vikings did it with an old and injured quarterback. They had a number they budgeted and go see what's out there. And here come the Falcons at $45 million a year. And that probably surprised the Vikings and surprised Kirk Cousins. And that's why he left. So I just think regardless of whether or not you lose the guy, you got to be willing to lose the guy and then start over again with somebody else if you think this is a guy that isn't going to consistently get you in the hunt for championships.
Well, I mean, it used to be in the prior collective bargaining agreement, Mike, as you know, the highest paid player in the history of the game used to be a kid who had never played a down in the NFL. And you had to pay whoever you were drafting at the quarterback spot, first or second or third overall, the most generationally enriching contract in the history of the NFL, and the owners rightfully didn't want to do that. I mean, name me another business in the country, like the top law firm in the United States is not paying the top law student in the United States the highest paid salary in the history of the firm that's been around since 1920. So now it's just a situation where at least you get 3-4 years to see something before the market might dictate terms that ownership is finding difficult to swallow. So I guess at least that's an improvement. The slotting is an interesting idea. I just don't know who's going to do that for a young player that they drafted first, second, third overall. That said, the draft from 3 years ago is Trevor Lawrence is the only guy still left with his original team, and everybody else is backing up right now.
And I think teams are more willing to roll the dice on quarterbacks now because that dynamic has changed where, the Jamarcus Russell damage to the Raiders wasn't just we don't have a quarterback. It's we have havoc wreaked on our salary cap because of the financial investment that was made in that quarterback. And it got so bad that I remember in 2008, there was speculation that Bill Parcells in his first year running the show in Miami was just going to pass with the first pick and pass again and keep passing until he got to a slot where he was comfortable paying that money to whoever they took in that slot. It didn't happen, but there was at least talk that they might do that. That's how bad it was. But the other side of that now, Rich, and this is why I get a little antsy when teams decide to wait 4 years or longer to give a guy his contract. Because if you never got the big payday you would have gotten under the old system, but you've played well enough that you would have justified it, why are you making this guy wait? And some guys will do it. Remember the Kyler Murray manifesto that his agent put on X, where you needed a magnifying glass to read it single space. Hey, he wasn't going to play in the fourth year of his contract for $4 or $5 million or whatever it was, and they did it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that every player who ends up playing great under a rookie contract, whatever round, after 3 years when that window opens on a second contract, you should say, I am not showing up until I get my contract. That's what Ezekiel Elliott did. That's what Kyler Murray did. That's what these guys need to do. Get paid as soon as you can.
Mike, you the man. Thanks for the time.
All right.
Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, we're good. You and I are always good. All
right, good. I was just starting to wonder. I haven't heard from Rich in a while. I hope everything's okay.
Everything's
You
great.
never know.
Everything's great.
I tend to say some dumb things sometimes and piss people off or do it on purpose. It's more fun when you do it on purpose. Trust me. All right, I'm glad it's all good.
Mike, I'm still here. So
I know that. The two of you speak the same language. Thanks, Mike. You be well.
All right, see you.
Everybody check out Mike Florio, obviously this fall, Football Night in America, and on Peacock, NBC Sports on Peacock, Fast Channel, as they say. Always love chatting with Mike.
Yeah.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.